Hey, What You Grow family. I just felt compelled to do a little session here in the Surf Shack. And I had so many people come up to me after the message on Sunday and said how important it was to them or how helpful. And, people are in the habit of ranking them and they're like, that's in your top five. And many people said it was the best one ever. And I got to thinking about it. Why were people talking about it so much? And of course, I was talking about, in a way, handling election anxiety, which is like a new phrase that I had never heard of. But I think it's just things that people are dealing with, and it's something that's been going on for quite a while. And I really felt compelled to address it because, as I said in the message, it's not so much about who you voted for. I know a lot of you don't want to hear me say that, but hear me out. Hear me out. It is. It's much deeper than that. If you're a follower of Christ, and it doesn't negate the importance of voting, doing what you can. I applaud people that vote. I voted. I applaud people that campaign or said their piece or did their part, all of which is important. But what I feel like has happened is I feel like people, especially those that would, you know, claim to follow Christ, I feel like they've taken it too far. I feel like that they've put all their stock and their hope in an election or in a leader or something. And I think I got to be honest with you. I think that is way off the mark. And I love you. I love all of you, but I gotta call it like I see it. I think that's really misunderstanding what it's all about. And certainly it's a paradox, right? You think if God's in control, then he would just control it. But yet he gives us some measure of control. And that's the whole paradox. How much are we in control and how much are we not in control? But faith is ultimately this recognition that God is in ultimate control. And yet we're supposed to do our part. And so I want us to just take a minute, and I want to tell you that I'm going to do a little bit more this coming Sunday. But I want to take a minute and reflect on what Jesus taught us. So this is what Jesus taught us and what Jesus taught people in his day, because people were worried about who was ruling over them constantly in Jesus' day. And if you've ever been a real student of the Bible, you'll know that that's absolutely true, that much of the background of the New Testament is about the Roman leadership and about the Jewish leadership and who's the right person and what's the right system, and also how does God rule, right? How does that happen? It happens through people. It seems like that there's no real way for God to directly rule because then there would just be arguments over, well, God said told me this and God told me that. So it seems like the method is through people, and God allowed Israel to have a king back in 1 Samuel 8. They just insisted. So it's weird. It's a weird story because it's like God finally relents and says, "Okay, okay, you can have one," and it doesn't go great. And but what we sort of realize is that all we have are these very imperfect people, and Jesus taught about what he called the kingdom of God. So let me take you to a story. Jesus is arrested, John 19, and he's standing before Pilate. And this should sort of help us grasp the whole thing. And the Jewish leaders who arrested him said that they wanted him crucified. But Pilate said, I don't have any basis for that. And they said, well, we can't kill him because you won't let us kill him, but he claims to be the Son of God. And when Pilate heard this, it says, he was even more afraid. And he went back into the palace and he speaks to Jesus, where do you come from? And Jesus would not answer him. He still refused to answer him. And Pilate says, do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you realize I have the power to free you or crucify you? People are angry, people are happy, people are elated, people are anxious, people are all of these different things. And my contention is we're too emotional because we don't understand where the real power comes from. Pilate thinks he's in charge. He's standing with Jesus. He thinks he's in charge. And it seems like he is. It seems like he's killed a lot of people. And that's what's funny. What seems like and what actually is are not the same. And Jesus looks back at him, and I want you to remember this verse. Jesus says, don't you realize, or Pilate says, don't you realize that I can free you or I can crucify you? And Jesus answers, this is the one you got to lock in on. John 19, verse 11, you would have no power, none, over me if it were not given to you from above. Jesus can see right through Pilate. Jesus can see right through every political power and establishment. And he called it the kingdom of God. When Jesus came, he told and started to teach people right away, the kingdom of God is at hand. The kingdom of God is among you. The kingdom of God is within you. And when Jesus is arrested and he speaks about it, he says, if my kingdom were of this world, my followers, right, we would have fought. But my kingdom is not of this world. And so the first thing that we have to know as a follower of Christ is like, we're playing on a whole different field. This is the minor leagues. And I have respect for people that serve in public office. It is a necessary duty. It is an honorable thing. You give people. I know I have a lot of friends that serve in these political offices, and a lot of them are very thankless type jobs and all of that. But that's not the big game. The big game is up here. And that's why it's crazy that as a follower of Christ, you get too anxious and too angry and too elated and too anything here, because what Jesus was talking about was here. And was Jesus anxious? Was he upset? He's calm as a cucumber standing before Pilate because he knows Pilate's not running the show. And man, we got to get this through our heads. As followers of Christ, I mean, we're standing on a different plane altogether. And so what we need to know about the kingdom of God is that it's more real than this world. It's more real than this world. How is that possible? That's something you got to chew on. It's more powerful than this world's systems. And it was the focus of Jesus above anything else. Go back and read the Gospels. He talks about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of God, the rule and the reign of God. And really, it's people fighting over power. And so what you have to understand is, where does the real power come from? The problem is we've assumed the wrong things. And when you start assuming, man, that's a mess. We just assume there's where the power is. We shouldn't assume what everyone else is assuming. That means we're being conformed to the world rather than changing it, rather than being transformed. And what we have to understand is that this is all in God's hands. And sometimes it takes a little veer this way that you don't understand, and a veer that way that I don't understand. And sometimes it looks like God's not in control at all. And as I talked about last week, sometimes it seems like God lets us steer to our own detriment. But ultimate control is in the hands of God. And that's what we need to remember. Our most important thing is to trust, to pray, to do our part. That's what we got to do. And then walk in peace, knowing and trusting in God. And so I'm going to address it a little bit more this Sunday. And I'm going to talk about how you can get along with somebody that you disagree with in politics. It's possible. You can get along, and it's possible to respect them even. Some of you aren't ready to hear that, but give it a little time. Give it a little time. But even if it's just this, how do you some of you got to have Thanksgiving dinner together, and you got to learn how to first get along. And I think we got to go a long way to learning to respect other people, even when we disagree with them. And the Bible has a lot to say about that. And there's a lot of teachings from Paul about how we can do a better job loving people that we disagree with. And we can also take a step back and say, you know what? As we learned as kids growing up, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. And so just keep trusting God. He's going to make everything all right. And keep doing your part, right? Keep following Christ. God bless you.